Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Aqibatun lil mustaqim. Allah fi kulli umri esta'in. Wa Allahu fi kulli umri amjid. Muhammadun huwa sayyidina makbubana. Innana nahibbuhu wa natabiruhu. Wa ala shariatuhu wa sunnatuhu nafid wa innahu nabiyana salla Allah ta'ala alayhi wa salam. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Lil ikhwani wa akhwati fi din. Salamu ala mani taba'a huda lil ikhwani akhwati fi Afrika wa Asia wa Europa wa America wa West Indies wa kulli makan. Halan wa salam bikum. Kayfa halukum wa عائلتكم ma Allah. Amma ba'd. Suratul Mubarakat Hujurat Hayat Tisa Qala tu subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa in ta'ifataini minna mu'minina atatalu aslihu bainahuma wa in bagat ikdayhuma ala uqra فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تكفي إلى أمر الله فإن فات أصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين. كلمات الله تعالى صدق الله العظيم. I just read here Surah 49, verse number 9. It's a beautiful verse and it talks about the problems that can arise between Muslimin and how we're supposed to handle those problems. And this is one of the traits of Islam, of Iman, that we must have is a reconciliation. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Isaac and my dear sister Amina, and those who may show up in the future, inshallah ta'ala. As we're getting close now to the end of the 77 traits of Islam, now we're starting to get into particular situations where we have to really look at ourselves and how we govern among ourselves and how we do things among ourselves. This is some of the traits of a good, strong Muslim that handles situations that we're here going to discuss. Because in today's time, we have problems everywhere, not only just in the dark kufr, the disbelieving nations, but we also have these problems in the Muslim states as well, severe problems. And a lot of this is attributed to because we have walked away from Islam. Our enemies have grown stronger. They've been able to influence many of us through money, power, gifts, and so forth and so on. And so we are now in a crisis that is growing. And it's funny that when we look at the 77 traits and why the 77 traits are so hated by the modern Muslim, because these 77 traits bring you back to the fold of Islam, bring you back to Iman, bring you back to faith. It strengthens your salat And the modern Muslim doesn't want that, nor does the enemy who support the modern Muslim. He doesn't want that as well. And so this is why the 77 traits are not talked about. Even some of our famous and most learned of our scholars, they skirt over this. And we understand why. Some of them can't discuss this because they live in draconian situations where their lives may be put at stake, or they may have their families jailed or killed, or they may have their daughters ravished. So they have to skirt over many different things that they want to discuss, but they cannot. So with that said, we'll start here on number 63, as I listed it here in the chat. This is extremely important because we have this severe problem today. To make peace between two warring groups or individuals. Boy, this has been going on since the time, especially after our Prophet ﷺ died. This conflict has always arisen. We've always had two or more parties of Muslims who have disagreed and fought, or they've had disagreements and one killed the other, or one went to the enemy of that particular Muslim so that enemy could exact some punishment on his brother. This has been a severe problem within the Muslim ranks for almost 1,400 years, to be honest with you. And we still have this problem today. And it's been exacerbated by the enemy, because the enemy, the two Bob governments, are strong, very, very strong. And their will of influence, evil influence, is off the charts. But it's starting to wane here in Africa. As you can see, some of the African states, I see Rwanda today just threw out French language. And I applauded it when I read that. And there's others now are starting to throw out and he's issued in Swahili as the national language. And we have South Africa that also is on board that. They're already teaching their young men and women, I think elementary schools, Swahili. So we're starting to see these change. But those changes are not happening fast enough in the Muslim world. They are very slow. But the Black African states are moving towards that, whereas our Muslim states are not. They're gravitating to another Tubab. They get mad at one Tubab over here, then they go and graduate and go to the other Tubab. All of them are as evil as the next, and they still gravitate to a Tubab government for protection and advice. And they thrown away the Quran and the Sunnah. And so we have warring parties in the Muslim world, as you see that. We know that. We have Mujahideen groups. But let's get to the backdrop of this here. And I'll give you the Quran. I just read off the beautiful ayat in the Quran, 49 verse 9, when Subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this. And so we look at this in modern times today, and we know that the enemy, the American government, has, who is enemy towards the Muslims. There's no hidden, love or anything like that they have for us. We know they don't like us, and the Muslims generally don't like them. And so they have created a situation where they've created groups, and these four groups among the Muslims, they have devised and then used this as a barometer to attack. And so I have discussed this many times before, but it's pertinent again for me to give you the names of the groups. I think it was 2009 when the Pentagon issued this statement, because they're supposed to be expert on the Muslims, how to kill them and how to separate them and what to do to them. And so what they did, they said that we're going to divide them in four groups, which they did. And the first group is the fundamentalists. The second group is the traditionalists. The third group is the secularists, and the fourth group is the modernists. So what happened was they figured that they can make us war. So they empowered the modernists and the secularists. They empowered them, put them in power, gave them weapons, money, anything at their disposal. The first two is who they still kill today, and they still jail today. It's them who they always put on the watch list. It's them who they go after continuously and try to make up things on them. You can't even utter anything anymore as a Muslim, especially if you're in the first two groups. The first two groups, again, is the fundamentalists and the traditionalists. The fundamentalist groups are those who are asking for the Quran and the Sunnah. They want the Quran and the Sunnah. They want the Sharia of Allah Ta'ala as the governance of all Muslims. They do not want democratic ways and means. They don't want the communist ways and means. They don't want Taoism or Shintoism or any other type of ism. They don't want any of that. They don't want juju. They don't want obia. They don't want any other type of governance or religion to govern over them except the Sharia of Allah Ta'ala and the Sharia of the Sunnah. The Sharia of Nabi alayhi salatu salam. They're being fought and killed and labeled as terrorists. The second group is the traditionalists. And these are the ones who hold to this tradition, quote unquote, Wahhabi, Salafists, there's a whole list of other groups that they have named off. They hold to a tradition and to a certain madhab, and this is what they go by. So what they've done, if they have managed to create trouble in between both of these two groups, and then as they create trouble among them, they kill them both. They go after fundamentalists. So we have the Wahhabi and the Salaf. They're arguing and fighting. Okay, while they fighting each other, the Tubab comes in behind them to kill them both. He puts them on terror watch lists. He puts them in jail. The traditionalists, the same thing. They go, they put programs in. They go undercover. They get them to talk and say certain things. Yes, I support this or I support that. Yes, I hope our brothers win. And then they put them in court over based upon that. So this is part of that. But subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his wisdom, gave us this because he knew that the Muslims are going to have problems like this. But as you see here in this beautiful, this beautiful surah here, Surah 49, verse 9. And I'm going to read this in English because I read this already in the Quranic Arabic, but I'll read this in English. If two parties among the believers fall into a quarrel, make ye peace between them. But if one of them transgresses beyond bounds against the other, then fight ye all against one that transgress until he complies with the command of Allah. Not democratic ways and means, not to the Tubab, not to the Russians, not to the Japanese or the North Koreans. He said to him, but if he complies, then make peace between them with justice and be fair, for Allah loves those who are fair. And again, if you look in Arabic at the last word there, muqsitin, this is another one of those adjectives that subhanahu wa ta'ala has described the believers that he loves. Remember I talked about mukhlisin, remember I talked about them and the mu'minin, and he's given the qa'itin, he's given many adjectives to describe the Muslims he loves. This is another one that he describes that these persons are fair and just. So he got a name for them. He gives them this name, this beautiful name. So when we look at this verse and we look at this here, this number 63, this is a requirement for the brother or the sister who claims to be a mu'min, that when we have the parties that are at odds, or two brothers or two sisters at odds over tawheed or some other thing, it's up to them to bring them to peace. But again, when we transgress, meaning he does something outside of the Sharia, then we have to bring him back. We fight him the best way we can to bring him back. Now, we know in history, we've had wars, deadly wars between Muslims and because there was disagreements. And we cannot judge those type of things. We're not supposed to judge that. We look at that and we learn from that. And you're supposed to bring them back to the command of Allah. Command of Allah is not American government. It's not their ways and means. It's not Russian law. It's not French law or their languages or their culture. This is not this is not command of Allah. Command of Allah is his sunnah, his sharia, and the sunnah and the sharia of our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. This has to be made and emphasized, because today we have Muslims who don't follow that. When there's a dispute between two Muslims, today we have a Wahhabi, quote unquote, and a Salafist. They get upset at one another. It's funny how the police always seem to know about these fights because they have informants there. But then suddenly they come to go after, because one of them will say, hey, look, Yahya and his group over here, oh man, let me tell you something. They're in support of all the Mujahideen groups. You should go out and get them. And then suddenly they come to arrest me and a whole bunch of people because our brother shouldn't have done this is mad because we have a disagreement about Tawheed. See, this is what has happened. That's not what we're talking about here. If there's a dispute between us, we bring whoever's out transgressing outside of the Sunnah and the Sharia of Allah and the Sunnah of the Sharia of a prophet, we bring them back to that. We don't bring them to communist ways and means. And this is what I was saying before. All these demonstrations, all of these fighting. Look what's happening in Sudan. They can't get it right. No government of the Muslims can get anything right unless they return back to the command of Allah. That's the bottom line. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has said this, and what he has said is true. None of us we cannot tweak enough the government. We cannot change it enough. We can't do this. We can't do that in order to get it right, because we went away from the command of Allah. And you go away from him and you use the enemy, his enemy's ways, you're going to have this problem. And Sudan is going on and off. They have a little quiet period and they go back to the streets again. They can't seem to get it. Why? Because the governance over there now has ran away from the Sharia. They have legislated against the Sharia. They've closed up the Imam schools. They've closed up the Islamic schools. We went after the scholars to please who? The Tubab governments. You see, this is why we have a problem. So when we have two warring groups, the one who's closest to the Tubab wins, because he and his army goes after the brother who fights to bring this guy back to the command of Allah. They say this is terrorism now. Remember that. The command of Allah to America, France, Spain, England, Russia, all of the Tubab governments, command of Allah means terrorism to them. Terrorism. The Holy Quran, we hear this book, they believe this is a catalyst to terrorism. It is not. This is our book. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a guide. There's nothing in there. It's contrary to terrorism. It's contrary to just out and out wanton killing and so forth. But they've labeled it this way. And we've had Muslims adopt what the Tubabs told them to adopt. And this is why we have this problem on number 63. To make peace between warring groups and individuals is very difficult. Because if one of the groups is a fundamentalist group, he's in trouble, because you have all the Tubabs coming after him. If he's a fundamentalist group wanting the Sharia and he wants the Sunnah as the governance of the land, it's over. You're going to have everybody after them. Even the Muslims today in Muslim lands a lot are like this. They don't want to see this. They don't want to hear. They don't even want to see anybody walking down the street who they think is a fundamentalist, or if he's Wahhabi, or he's Salafist, or he's a Tasawwuf. Any of those groups like this, they get mad with that. They want to see today the Muslim who now is in between. He's one day you can see him as a Muslim on Fridays, and the other days he's like a kafir, a disbeliever, and he acts like that. He looks like them, he adopts their ways, and then he goes to fight the brothers who are quote unquote fundamentalists and traditionalists. My dear brothers and sisters, this is a very serious problem we have, and this here is indicative of the problem that we have among Muslims today. To make peace between two warring groups and individuals, very difficult to settle that. And unfortunately, the groups that have deviated, meaning the fundamentalist groups, they said, okay, you war against me, you took my rights away, so I go to the desert to fight you. They've done this. We see this in the Sahel. We've seen this in Syria. We've seen this in Iraq. We've seen this even in Afghanistan. We've seen this in Pakistan. We've seen it every place, in the Philippines, where the brothers who were fundamentalists have now gone to war with the powers to be, so to speak. And what has happened? They've deviated from this. They begin to act as criminals. They forgot about the command of law. Yes, they want the command of law, but then out of sheer, I don't know what you call it, their efforts to win, they begin to make deviations from the command of Allah, and they get in trouble. And so we have that problem. Now, what do we do with that? No two Muslims, me and Isaac, if we war together, I don't bring him to democratic ways and means. No, I don't bring him to French philosophy as the cure to our problems. No, I bring him back to the command of Allah. If he says something is not right and we have a disagreement, we bring the Quran, we take it to Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we take it to our prophet. This is what we do as Muslims. We don't take it to France. We don't take it to Britain. We don't take it to Ireland. We don't take it to Russia or North Korea or South Korea or Japan. We don't take it there. We take it back to the Quran and the Sunnah. This is what Subhanahu wa ta'ala said here. Now, if somebody listens to this and says, oh, you see this guy, yeah, he's a a terrorist and all that. But then when you go ask the same Tubab who's talking like this, and you ask him a question, you say, well, but okay, what do you think about the Quran? Oh, yes, the Quran is this and that. It's designed to bring Muslims. Wait a minute. I'm talking for the Quran. I'm talking about the Quran and about what he says. So wait a minute, how can it be that I'm a terrorist and I'm an extremist when I'm going by the Quran? You see the difficulties that we have with the enemy who's causing the problems in number 63, who's helping the Muslims to have wars with one another. And so he's speaking with forked tongue. He says one thing about the Quran, and then when you use the Quran, he said, no, this is terrorism. So which one is it? And this is what I'm talking about. And when they hear the command of Allah, they say this is terrorism. But when you go back to the Quran and say, wait a minute, you said it's terrorism, but I got this out of this Surah 49 verse. Oh yeah, the Quran is beautiful. So you see the confusion. That's why we don't go to the Tubab governments, because they speak with forked tongue when it gets in regard to Muslims. They'll say one thing about the Muslims and then do another. And then the two other groups, the secularists and the moralists, they put them in power. And those are no different than the disbelievers, because they do not believe in the Quran and Sunnah. They only give it lip service. And this is where we have a problem. So again, my brothers and sisters, I'm taking a little bit more time on this one because we have this problem. When we have a dispute, we take it among ourselves and we go to the Quran and Sunnah. Remember, I tell you many times about I had this dispute with this one imam who basically made takfir on me. And he called me a bunch of names, saying because since I did not take the Ash'ari Aqidah, which that's another story all in together. It's full of bid'ah. He called me names. He said I was basically a Wahhabi and a Salafist and a terrorist. This is a Muslim. Okay. And he basically then after that went, I know, to the police to talk against me. This is the imam of a masjid on the East Coast of the United States. What I did I go and call the police or FBI or anybody? No, I did not. I went to a respected imam who's there in the East. He's respected all through the United States. I wrote him a letter to explain the disagreement I had with this brother and what he was doing, which was wrong. And I did not do what only as the command of Allah, to bring him back to the Sunnah Allah and the Sharia Allah. There's no Sunnah or Sharia Allah Ta'ala that tells you or me, if we war, to go to the Tubab to have somebody investigated or arrested and their family put in jail or something like that. No. But again, I preface that. It's different. If I'm doing something, I'm plotting to kill innocent individuals, Muslims and non-Muslims. That's different. You do what you can to fight this guy. He's a criminal who does this. These Muslims who go and bomb McDonald's, they bomb a church, bomb the masjid with the Muslims praying in it. They're criminals. You do what you need to do to stop that man. You have to do what you have to do. Even if you turn him in, you have no other choice, because now he's transgressed past. And not only that, in situations like this, what man goes to a masjid and kill the Muslims praying in it? Who does that? I mean, what Muslim does that? So he doesn't deserve anything. No sympathy on your part at all. So number 63, again, is a serious one, my brothers and sisters. And we should think about that and ponder that and be very careful of it. Be mindful of it and try your best. We all human beings, we get angry, but don't transgress against your brother. Don't transgress. Don't do this, my brothers and sisters. We have this all over the place today. And what happens when we do that? We sometimes accidentally kill our brother because we turn it over to the Tubab because of an argument over the Aqidah or argument over Tawheed, or we argue over some scholar and they take it to the Tubab and the Tubab goes to kill our brother. You've just committed murder and you have just committed apostasy. Your Islam is gone. You just killed your brother. Be very careful, my brothers and sisters, when you do this. Be very careful. The criminal elements, the ones, they have names for them. They call them terrorists and so forth and so on. We have things in Arabic we call them too, but they're basically mujrimeen. Those kind of people like this, that's a different situation. You do what you can to protect yourself and the community. You can't even go to McDonald's. You can't take your children or to the show. You can't even go to the park without one of these criminal Muslims to do this. You deal with him the best way you can. That's a different story altogether. But those who war over the Aqidah and over Tawheed, you don't go and take them to the police. Stop it, my brothers and sisters. It's happening too much. Stop this. It's not worth it. You kill your brother, because when you do this, you just killed him. When you turn him over to the British government and lie on him and say, well, you know, this group over here, hey, oh boy, you know what they're doing? They're supporting this group over here. You should go get them. They love that, because then they use you as evidence, and they can say, well, it's not Islamic phobia. It's Muslims that came to me with this problem. This is what they say. They said, the Muslims came to me, and here's my affidavit. It was Yahya and Muhammad Ahmed. This is what they said about this group over here. Bad news. It's bad news. So stop that. So number 64, we talk about the number 64, to assist in noble tasks. This is self-explanatory, especially charity. This is a noble task. And also bringing peace within Muslims is a noble task for us to emulate, to do this, and to do this often, to get the love of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. To assist in noble tasks there's many things to do that you talk about in this particular situation. Being even good to your family and to the extended family is one. It's a noble task. Being good to your neighbor is a noble task. Those type of things. Giving salam to your brother when you see him is a noble task, because as you walk down the street, you see your brother, you give him salam alaikum. This is a noble task. You giving him peace. You telling him, you're giving him something from your heart, and you're giving him something that's the words of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and you give this to your brother. That's a noble task. And when you go protect your sister when she's walking in the Medina, the city, and you know now, because the Sharia is gone, the punks, the thugs, the muggers and so forth now are running ramshot. Even in Muslim countries now, it's starting to happen a lot. Especially if you look at Sudan, you listen to what they tell you what's going on. Before, when the Sharia was in there, they got their butts kicked. It was the muggers, the mujrimeen, the criminals had a hard time because they had the Sharia court. When they threw away the Sharia court, now they're running amok. Even you go to protect your sister, you don't even know her, but you protect her on her way home. This is a noble task, my brothers and sisters. So this one is very self-explanatory, to do things that is right under the Sharia, protecting. You see a boy, a young child on a busy street, and you know how children are. A lot of times they get distracted. He walked in the middle of the street, he see a ball, he doesn't care about the cars coming. So you go there to go get the ball for him, or you stop the traffic the best way you can so the boy can get his ball. This is a noble task. You see an old man, old woman, you know that they're decrepit. It's very difficult for them to walk. You aid them. They have groceries, and you go and take those groceries to their car, or if somebody's waiting for them, take those groceries. Those are for that person. Those are noble tasks, irrespective if they're white, black, or what. You help them. If you're a Muslim and you're living in a non-Muslim world, and you see an old white man, a tubab, and you see he's got Parkinson, he's got some type of ailment of some sort. You see him having problems to lift his groceries to put it in the car. There's no harm in that. You go help him. He's a human being still. He's still your brother in humanity. You still help him. He didn't do anything to you, so you help him. This is nothing wrong. That's a noble task, my brothers and sisters. Okay, number 65. We kind of talked about this somewhat in a little bit. To command the good and prohibit the evil. This is easier said than done, because we're human beings. We all commit sins. I don't care who you are. You will commit sins, and you're going to have to answer for those sins. And we have methods in Islam to do this. But we have the individuals here where we're talking about here, where Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has warned about this many times, about doing the good and prohibiting the evil. I'm talking about the reoccurring evil. I'm talking about the Muslim brother who sells hashish 6-7 times per week. He's continuously do this. We're not talking about the single incident where the brother said, if I get $50 today to go feed my family, and you know that the gangster that you know him before he came to Islam, he'll let you sell a couple of joints, so to speak, and you go sell that. That's that time. Yes, you're wrong, but you take that money, but you stop. You're not doing it anymore. Okay, you sin. You ask Subhanahu wa Ta'ala forgiveness, but you did it because you want to put food on the table. We're not talking about the drug dealer who goes out there and he's selling continuously. Even that brother who sold the first time, he doesn't know when he sold the marijuana or to this guy what he's going to do in order to get money to go get the next one. He may end up killing somebody, and that may be on you. But I was just giving that example to say that the person who makes them single mistake versus those who are repetitive, okay, recidivism, where he every single day he's out there, selling, and or the fornicator, the person he's a Muslim. He's got 4 or 5 girlfriends. He's got a wife inside the house, but he's got 4 or 5 girlfriends out there that he fornicates with. He does this on a weekly basis. He is one of these here. He's ordered to command good and prohibit evil. That's evil because he's got a wife inside the house. And yet he's having sexual relations with 4 different women. They're not his wife, okay? They are not his wife, and he's having relations with them. And he's doing evil things. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish this individual for that. And some of the scholars have stated that the person who is repetitively doing this, I'm not talking about, like Monday, I got weak. I saw the guys drinking some beer. I remember when I was a Muslim, I go to take a beer with them. I did it. I have not done this in many years. We're not talking about that. But when I go to drink with these guys, Monday, Wednesday, after Jumu'ah's prayer, and then Sunday, and then I start doing the same thing over and over, repetitive, or the fornicator. Many of our scholars stated this person has become a mushrik. He's put his worship alongside with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because those persons are doing it continuously. They are thinking about it, and they're not thinking about Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many of the scholars say that these people have become mushrikun because of their reliance on evil, thinking about it, how they can accomplish it. The man what lie he's going to tell his wife. He know Monday he's got to tell her one lie. Then when Wednesday comes, he's got to tell her another lie. Thursday night comes, he's got to tell her another lie. So that means he's pondering in his head what he can do to lie, to convince his wife that he's not doing nothing wrong. This is evil. This is wrong. And it's repetitive. And he's doing it over and over again. Our scholars say this guy is mushrik. He's now mushrikun, meaning he's assigned partners to Allah. This is what some of the scholars have said. And some of the students of knowledge have also said that. Okay, let's look at number 66 here. This is an interesting one. I kind of touched on this somewhat, but this is some of the problems we have today in the Muslim world. If it is the government, it should mete out punishment according to the Sharia. They don't do that. No more. Now we don't have the Sharia punishments hardly anymore, except they choose to pick some things in the Sharia to use against their opponents. But as a general rule, the Sharia is almost absent in most Muslim countries today, and it's shameful. And this is why we have the mujrimeen are running amok, because since the Tubab is running in the background, he's encouraging again the criminal element. And I'll say this, and you think about this, and you do your research. Why is it every time the American government gets into an area and he gets a security agreement with a Muslim country or non-Muslim country, especially Africa and Asia in particular, have you noticed that the minute that agreement is signed, you see debauchery has risen tremendously? Mafia activities have grown. Human trafficking goes off the charts. Whoredom off the charts. Whorehouses all over the place. Pimps all over the place. Robbers. All of that stuff seems to flourish when the Tubab American government begins to come into a place. They encourage that. Prime example of that is if you look what happened in Afghanistan. We have to mention it as it is. Okay, nobody supporting the government there, but we're talking about the people and what happened. Remember, I gave you examples of the girls. Some of those girls were 2 children. They were involved in fornication. They had no husbands. If you look at some Vice TV in particular from England, they showed these whorehouses that were flourishing under the so-called democratic government of Afghanistan and the Americans. Even American soldiers, as that one Afghan said, he said, yeah, my place come in because of the American soldiers. He had homosexual places, and he had also the heterosexual whorehouses. He had both. And we have American soldiers visiting these places in Kabul and Kandahar. Why is it every time you notice that when the American government gets involved in something like this, all of a sudden whoredom creeps up? This is the stuff that I'm talking about, and you check it out yourself. You check it. You see the whoredom and the debauchery. This goes off the charts when the American government, because it's by design, because they know this is going to kill the people by promoting this. This is why, especially here in Africa, because they want us out so they can take the resources. And this is a big, severe problem that we have today, especially in the Muslim states. And this is something I don't know how we can stop this. I don't know. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will in time, because we know the hadiths of the Prophet, we're going to get relief. Maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not lifetime of my children. I don't know. We don't know when this is going to come about, but we know we're going to have prosperity. And this Tubab governments, the wickedness, they're starting, you see, like France is having a difficult time in Africa now. They're starting to throw them out. Their languages they throw out. They're being disrespectful towards them. This is good, because they have killed, they have colonized, and they stole the wealth of the African continent. The American government, mainly in West Africa, stole the most important commodity, which was what? Human beings. Still today, West Africa is depopulated. After all those hundreds of years, they're still depopulated because of the slave trade. That's right, my brothers and sisters. And they have not stopped now. As I told on another program, one of the most damaging things we see today, we got trafficking of Black women in West Africa now, and East Africa as well. But West Africa, they are trafficking our sisters a lot into Europe and into the Middle East and into Asia. That's got to stop. And because our governments are basically turning the other way because they're being paid off. But we have trafficking of African women, and it's shameful. It's a new slavery. And you see CNN, you see MSNBC, you see them having all these seminars. But it's funny, they know who's behind it, but they do nothing to stop it. They go after the man on the ground who gets a couple of dollars, dirhams, to go to bring a woman to the place so she can be kidnapped. So they go after that person. But the conglomerates is sitting in Europe and the United States who fund this, they don't touch them. That's the UN for us. That's why many of our African leaders say, you have uneven terrain. When it's us, when we do something wrong, you put us before your courts. But when the Israeli government and the Tubab, when they do things and genocide and bad things, raiding and invading the country, you do nothing against them. And that's why many of them won't turn in their population to the UN, which they should not. No African should do this, because that UN is not in favor of that. They want to put only Black faces before their criminal courts. The white faces they leave alone. They don't touch them. They let them run and do what they want. But when a Black African country does something wrong, and its leaders, and they should be punished, but the punishment should be laid out by the government and by the people, not by the Tubab. This is a problem that we see today, and this is why, as far as I'm concerned, I have no respect for the UN, because when I start seeing them put the Israelis in the criminal courts there in the UN, I love to see this. And some of the Americans and some of the British and the French for what they have done, then I'll have respect for them. But they don't touch them. They don't touch them at all. They only touch the Black faces. If you notice that, you look at the criminal courts, who you see there, it's only the Black faces, and sometimes a Hispanic or something like that, or Arab, but no white face goes there. That's funny, isn't it? Very interesting. That's why you can't trust it. Now, let's look at the number 67, and we'll close for the day. To strive against the enemies of Deen, if possible by hand, if not by tongue, pen, writing, if not by heart, whatever such occasion presents itself. My brothers and sisters, we live in that time today. As you hear me talk right now, I'm talking against it because I have no army. I have no power to correct, to fight this enemy that is very strong today. He's wicked. His wickedness is things that we can't even conjure up. They can conjure up and they can do. As you're over trying to, you go to Subhanahu wa ta'ala, they go to the devil. That's why they can conjure up all the evil ways to do things, because they work with the devil. And you can't do anything, but we have the dua. You do that often, my brothers and sisters. That's a powerful, powerful tool that the Tubab can't stop. And the enemies of Islam, they cannot stop it. You can be on a street corner, you can make your dua. And you can ask subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring us relief, to bring and to bring down this enemy that's killing us in that particular place, or that's killing the Muslims around the world. You can ask for that dua. And you can write if you're strong enough to do it. But we know it's not easy. We know that because even talking, I know that for a fact because I've been under threat so many times talking against this Tubab, and they want to kill. And they for them to kill a black face, it's nothing. It's easy for them. They've been doing it for damn near 500 years. So it's when they see you talk, they call me a fundamentalist. They call me a terrorist. They call me a malcontent, a militant. When I talk about what he's doing, I haven't lynched any of his people. I never castrated any Tubab. I never got them and ravaged their people and their women and stuff like that. I haven't done that. I didn't go after some white woman or man Tubab and go and put them in jail. But that's what they do. And when I talk about it, then they say I'm wrong. And then when you talk about what they've done to your family, then they say you're wrong. This type of thing here, you strive against the enemies because subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to strive against them, but you do it within your means. Now, I'm not holding anybody to that. If you live in a place where you can't talk, don't talk. Don't do it to put yourself and family because you put you and your family in peril. Don't do it. Okay, you can't. Don't do it. You got children that's waiting for you to come home at night, and you got a wife, and it's very difficult. How are you going to fend for themselves if you're in jail and stuff? Yes, you may be right, but you got to be practical and realistic in today's climate. It's very difficult to talk against the enemies of Islam because you could end up dead, or you could end up in jail or something like this, or thrown in the ocean dead. In other words, so in this particular situation, you do the best you can. If you can't do any of that, make your dua. My brothers and sisters, make your dua for the ummah that this day will come, that you may be part of this liberation that will come. It's going to come. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that. You make that dua. They can't stop that. I don't care where you are. You could be sitting in here. You can make the dua. You can be sitting in your office there, and you can make a silent dua for the Muslims' victory and to bring us relief from what is happening. This is one of the best tools. They can't stop that because you can talk underneath your breath. They can't stop that. But the other stuff they can. If you're writing, they can eliminate that. They go on the computer and remove all your documents. Or you send it, they can block it, and they can do that. If you go talk, they can knock you off YouTube and out of Facebook and other places to stop you from talking, or they can silence you and put you in jail. All these type of things they can do. But your dua, that's something they cannot fight, my brothers and sisters. So you use that. You use that, okay? That is a tool that subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Our Prophet ﷺ has shown us how to do it and how strong and powerful it is. You use that, okay? Use that to the best of your ability, make that dua. That dua, you can do this anytime. There's no, you don't have to make wudu. You don't have to do it only in prayer. But the best of the dua we know is in prayer. We understand that. But in the day's time, you can be walking. I do it often. I ask subhanahu wa ta'ala, please give us victory. Please give us, this relief from the evil that's around, especially in Africa. We have the evil Tubab governments. They're the wicked. And I ask that subhanahu wa ta'ala free us. And we're starting to see our African leaders are starting to stand up. Rwanda, I saw today, I was so happy when I saw our brother, the Rwanda president, say, hey, no more of that. I'm throwing out the French language. I'm putting in Swahili. I applauded those brothers. In Senegal, they used to have all of the white heroes, quote unquote white heroes for the Tubab in Europe. They painted that over and they start putting Africans born in America as those role models. Now you go to Senegal, if my brother Saeed, if he was here, he can probably tell you about that because he goes to Senegal quite often. But now they painted over those murals of those Tubab criminals and stuff who were involved in slavery and all this other stuff. Now they putting black heroes, black men and women. See, it's starting to happen. Make your dua. make your dua, my brothers and sisters. Ask for the victory. Now, again, let me preface this. People will say, Yahya, because I've heard this. They say, Yahya, you hate anybody that's a tuba. No. You listen to all my speeches. I go by what subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. I hate the ones who are fighting us. I hate the ones who are racist and legislate against us. But we have good tuba, and every year has been on the side of the Muslims. They've even aided African Americans in their law firms and so forth and so on. Those ones, that's who you don't show no enmity towards them. You show them brotherhood. You talk to them and you treat them kindly. The Trump type people, the Trump followers, those kind of people like this, nobody in the right mind, if some tuba comes to tell you, you need to support Trump and his band of Antichrist followers. No, you don't support that. Okay, you don't support that. But those groups that are out there now that, we have white law firms now who are bringing justice for brothers who've been put in jail. They take their DNA and they exonerate them now in court. You applaud those brothers to do this. Those two Bob are doing is they're spending out of their own pockets to go to free Africans born in America in jail. You see the difference? That's why subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, the mizan, the middle ground. And me, as a black man, I told you I have a problem because I do have anger towards them. And sometimes I go overboard with it. And sometimes my wife puts me back in the check, or my oldest daughter will say something to me, hey, Dad, and they put me back in the check, put me back into the middle again. Because sometimes I lose focus because because I'm an old man now. I think about the times when I was first called the NIGG word at 5 years old. I think about now when we found the DNA, I found out about my ancestral mothers and what happened to them. They have mulatto babies from this tuba. Yes, I'm angry about that. I'm still angry about that. But I'm a Muslim. I must find a middle ground for that. Sometimes it's hard. I admit that. It's very hard for me to find that middle ground because I get angry thinking about, I wish I could, my ancestral mothers, I could protect them. I could not. I have to, now I'm the recipient of knowing what happened to them, how they felt. They had to carry this enemy's baby. I wonder how my ancestral mothers felt. Yes, I'm angry about it. I talk about it, yes, but I have to have that middle ground. You understand what I mean? I know that Africans born in America, especially our brothers, you know how we feel about our mothers. And when our mothers, our ancestral mothers were ravished like this, I'm sorry. It's very difficult to find middle ground. I admit that. I'm weak in this. I have to be, brought back in many times, even by my wife. She has to tell me, hey, Yahya, please, get in the middle ground. So even me, I admit that. I have my problem with the tuba, and I have to find the middle ground, the racist tuba, not all. So I say that because I want to show you I'm not perfect. And I have my thing. I know I have my problems just like everybody else. But I have to go back to the command of Allah. And sometimes I transgress a little bit here, but then I have to be brought back. That's what we are as Muslims. We do this. No Muslim can stay high up all the time. You're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to make sinful moves and say things sinfully, and you may even think things sinfully. But as long as you don't act on them, I have anger, but I don't act on it. When I go out, I see them out there. I know what they're trying to do. They hired criminals to come after me on the street. I know that. I see him over there. I can do nothing. I can't walk up there to him and slash his throat or take his head. I cannot. But if he comes to me to do something, that's a different story. I have my right to defend myself. And I think the 400, 500 years of pent up anger, I probably will do something if he comes in my face to do something. But since he's over there, I must look at him and make dua against him and walk away. That's the Muslim way to do it. That's in the command of Allah. If I walk over here to him, I just transgress. When he's standing away from me over there, and I know what he is, but if I go there to do something to him, I'm wrong, my brothers and sisters. I'm dead wrong. I cannot exact punishment on him because with his ancestors, I cannot do it. I must look at him, okay, make dua against him, even though he's still working against me, and I just move on. That's how we have to handle it as Muslims. So I give you those analogies, my brothers and sisters, to show you that your brother is human. I'm 66 years old now. You can imagine what I've went through in my generation, especially at the time, I mean, I'm talking about the early 50s and 60s. Okay, it was bad. My children never had to face what I had to face. They were not called names. They had most of my children have not even faced any discrimination like I faced until they were 19, 20, in their 20s. You see, so times have changed. I felt it when I was 5 years old. So we do have some of those changes. So, my brothers and sisters, in a nutshell today, I talked harshly, but I talked with facts about these particular traits that we must have as Muslims. And I gave from my heart about some of these and how it does affect even the best of the Muslims, how some of these do affect us. So I gave you that for you to ponder and try to master. And again, number 63, make peace between us, between the warring groups, individuals, to assist in noble tasks. 64, to command the good and prohibit the evil. That's number 65. And the government, they should mete out punishment according to the Sharia. We know they can't do it because they went away from the Sharia and they're wrong. And then number 67, to strive against the enemies of the religion by hand or by tongue, by writing or by your heart or any way you can. And this is what we talked about today, my brothers and sisters. So I'm hoping that you got something out of this. And you heard your brother speak. I spoke from my heart on some of these here. And I'm hoping today that you got this. We're close now. We're getting closer to 77 traits. And we'll be finishing here perhaps next in a couple of days from now. So we'll see. You hear the adhan for Salat al-Maghrib. It's very close now. And so my brothers and sisters, I thank those who showed up, my brother Isaac and my sister Amina. Thank you for showing up. My brothers and sisters will show up in the future and so forth and so on. And, as I said before, my brothers and sisters, please get these 77 traits, learn them by heart if you can, and then try to practice, try to bring them into your repertoire so you can please Subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? You cannot be a movement unless you acquire these things. You got to. If you're interested in pleasing Subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will master these 77 traits. Yes, it's difficult, but you die trying. You die trying, my brothers and sisters. Please die trying to get those 77 traits. Ask Subhanahu wa ta'ala, will he grant those that your wish that you acquire those 77. So, my brothers and sisters, today I talked again in length about some, and hope we could see each other again in the future. Bi'ifnillah ta'ala. So I'll leave you with the beautiful words of Jinnah. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.